This is going to be a good night. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Bible Hangout. I am Reverend Sherri James, and I am so excited to be here with you tonight. We are following through on a new study that we're doing based on Reverend Mary Pumpkin's A Student's Guide to the Hebrew Scriptures. Now, I have several things to show you guys tonight, from tables to very rudimentary PowerPoint things that I like put together just so that it would be easier for you to follow along in the text. And please feel free to ask questions throughout. Just be mindful of your background noise. If you do have background noise, mute yourself so that it doesn't take away from anybody else's ability to listen. But I want questions. We're going to do our best to get through all the rest of the introduction, which is only really a few pages, but you'll see once you get into the Bible, it's just, you're off and running to the races as far as information and just, and it really, you'll see. let's just get in. And what else do I have for you? So what I want you to do on your end, if you can pull up two screens, or if you can get your Bible, I want you to pull out the 137th Psalm. Preferably pull out the New Revised Standard Version. I think that's the one I pulled. Yeah, I think that's the one I pulled. I actually am not 100% certain. But pull out the New Revised Standard Version, the 137th Psalm. You're going to need that. I want you to go to page 7 in the text. Page 7 in the text. Go to page 7 in the text, and we're going to start there. Now, I want to back up. What we spent time with, hold on, let's pray, get my bearings. Let's just relax. Let's be excited because I love the Bible. I love this information, and I know it's going to change your life because it changed mine. And I just thank you, God, for what you're going to do here tonight. I'm just grateful for everything that you are bringing us through. I thank you for a deepened understanding of our Bible, of this sacred text that has so much spiritual guidance and instruction for living. And as Reverend Della taught us, that it is our rule book for what it means to be human. And so I thank you so much for just enabling us to dive into this, to get an understanding of how this book came together, and to really, really, really get a grasp on what is in the text. And so we just bless your name. We ask that everything that we do here this evening be for the glory of you, and that when we leave this space, that the attention is not on any one of us individually, but it is on you, our indwelling Lord. In the name and the nature of the one that is called the Christ, we affirm that it is so, and so it is. And amen. All right. So book, make sure on your end you have the 137th Psalm pulled up. And just for review, what we went through last week, we talked about like what the Bible is, the idea that you cannot really call it a book because a book suggests a single author with a single point of view, attempting to get across a single message. And we know that there are an unknown number of writers, even inside of different texts in the Bible. So for example, Genesis, you have several different writers that are contributing to the text through the Genesis tradition. We talked about the three components of what we in the Christian community call the Old Testament, but which is somebody's Bible. And so out of respect for the fact that it is not somebody else's Old Testament, we refer to it as the Hebrew Scriptures. We talked about that those first 5 books being called the Torah. Sometimes you hear the entire Jewish Bible referred to as the Torah, but it really only refers to Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers and Deuteronomy. And then the next group, which is the writings of the prophets, and those are called the Nevi'im. And then the writings, which are like the Song of Songs or Song of Solomon or things like that. Those are Psalms, things like that. Those are considered the writings. We talked about the fact that the Bible is considered a canon, meaning that there was a standard against which the text was measured, and the texts that did not meet the standard didn't get included in the canon, and those that did were. Every religion has a canon, which is uh, a standard. These are the texts that are the ones that we study. Canonization happens in a crisis, and we talked about the fact that a lot of what we consider to be our Bible came together during the Babylonian exile. That you previously had the fall of Israel to the Assyrian Empire, and then the Assyrian Empire fell to the Babylonians, and the Babylonians conquered Judah, which was the remaining independent nation of Judah, the remaining Israelites that were part of the southern kingdom, and they brought them into exile. And when they brought them into exile, the Israelites had the unique idea to begin to write down to not let go of their God. Gods were territorial, meaning that there was the God of that nation, but that nation didn't necessarily have relevance outside of the geographical area. So when you left that area, you would adopt the God of the new area that you were in. And so what was unique about this ancient Hebrew community was that they kept their God, and they kept this idea that they were being brought through something as opposed to their God having abandoned them or failed them, that somehow this experience in the Babylonian exile was actually a part of God's plan for Israel. We talked about the Apocrypha. These were the texts that came about from the Jews at this point living outside of what became known as Palestine. It's Persia that gives the name Palestine to what was formerly Israel or Judah. The Greek-speaking Jews, who were like Jews of the diaspora, they weren't living in the homeland, if you will, that there were sacred texts that came about, like First and Second Maccabees. Oh God, there's a ton, but a ton of I don't know them because I haven't studied them the way that I've studied the other books that are in our canon. Those texts came about for those Greek-speaking Jews. Those texts we refer to as the Apocrypha. When the Bible was being adopted by early Christian communities, which at that point were only Catholic, they adopted the books that were acknowledged by the Jews living in Palestine or in what was formerly Judah, and they adopted the books that were considered part of the Apocrypha, which the Jews outside of Palestine that were in the Greek-speaking areas that they adopted. And so they adopted you'll see that the Catholic Bible is bigger, includes more books than just the Protestant Bible. The Protestant Bible only recognizes the text from the Jews that were inside of Palestine. And so we do not include the Apocrypha in the recognized books. Those books are not a part of the Protestant canon. So I hope this is making some of the things that we talked about last week a little bit clearer. When that Protestant canon, meaning the books that were recognized by the Jews inside of Palestine, Palestine being the name that Persia gave for what was formerly Israel, that translation from the ancient Hebrew into the Greek so that it could be read by Jews outside of Palestine that were Greek speaking was called the Septuagint. The Septuagint, and it is the first translation from the Hebrew, from the ancient Hebrew to the Greek. Okay, so that's just to get you caught up. I hope that helps clear up any questions. In fact, let me ask if there are any questions on that. All right. Seeing as there are no questions, let us go ahead and jump into it. So first I want to start here with the PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm at the top of page 7. The earliest collection was the TORAH, Torah is what goes in that blank. It was given its overall shape sometime during the Babylonian exile and was accepted as authoritative by about 400 BCE. So just to give you a timeline, this canonization is happening at different times. And we said canonization happens during a crisis. So the earliest collection, which is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, those 5 texts come together and begin to take shape during the Babylonian exile. So at this point, Israel is lost to the pages of history. Those 10 tribes have been relocated by the Assyrian Empire. The area that was formerly Israel is now occupied by the Assyrians. You have some intermarriage. So you have the capital of Israel was Samaria. So one of the things that you guys are probably familiar with the story, the parable of the Good Samaritan, that what makes that story radical is that the Samaritans were considered half-breeds. They were not respected. And part of being a Jew or being a Hebrew, really not really a Jew, they weren't Jews at this point. Part of being a Hebrew was being pure, meaning that you're all the way back through your lineage, everybody in your lineage was a Hebrew. So the fact that you had these mixed race people who had intermarried with the Assyrians or with other nations, they were now considered half-breeds. I don't know if you guys have I can hear my earrings, so I'm going to take it off just in case. They were considered half-breeds, and so they were not respected. So that Jesus would take a Samaritan and make the Samaritan the central figure in a story about who is actually good and what is good is a very radical idea. So this earliest collection that takes shape during the Babylonian exile. Israel has fallen. It is lost to the pages of history. The Assyrians have relocated most of the Israelites somewhere else. They have repopulated the area that was formerly Israel. The few that were left there intermarried, and you get these mixed race people who have some of the customs, right, that are holdovers from the Israelites that were there, but it's also mixed in with a lot of the traditions from the Assyrians. Judah stands for another about 150 years, and then Judah falls to the Babylonians. Reverend Mary always used to say that you know a people by the way that they conquer. And so the Assyrians, you always know that it's the Assyrians that were conquering, because what they would do is they would come in, take over the nation, and then relocate the people somewhere else. The Babylonians were very different. What they wanted to do was they wanted the talent out of the nation. And so they would come in and they would take over the nation, but they would figure out who were the people that were the talented tenth, if you will, in the nation, and they would bring them and put them in service to the Babylonian government. And so this is where you get stories like Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, or Daniel in the lion's den. These were the top of the top in the nation, and they weren't killed. What happened was that they were brought into Babylon and put into service. So they wanted their talent, they wanted their knowledge, and so they would put them to work, and they weren't free to leave. They would put them to work for the Babylonian government. And so a lot of those stories praise these characters, because what they did was that even though they were put into captivity, they didn't adopt the gods of their captors, that they maintained their allegiance to Jehovah. So just to give you some context for some of those stories. So what's happening in this exile is that this is a crisis, and so you start to see the beginning of the Torah, with the beginning of the law taking shape around 400 BC. Let me know if there are any questions on that. Okay. So the second collection.
I'm sorry, Rev, I was a little slow.
Oh, hey, Saba. Yeah, that's okay.
I did have a question. Now I'm trying to remember it. I was so focused on trying to get unmuted. The question went back. Oh, shoot. I'll remember it and ask it again. I'll write it down for next time.
No problem. No problem. The second collection was the prophets. Prophets is what goes in that blank. Prophets, which was closed around 200 BCE. So I want the probably the biggest thing to get is that this text, like you're talking about 200 years. So I want you to think about the fact that we're sitting in 2019, and I want you to think about what life was like in 1819. We're sitting in 2019 and what life was like in 1819. I mean, it was drastically different. So the second collection doesn't really come together. And what I mean is, by when I say come together, I mean that different writings are being taught in various communities, but no one has said this is the official collection. No one has said this is what matters. This is important and that's not important. That canonization, at least for the writings of the prophets, basically has not been set. So, which means that we have the prophets, the writings of the prophets that survived. We don't have the ones that basically didn't make it into the canon. Those are, we don't know what other prophets there may have been, but it is safe to assume that everything that's in the canon was not what was available to go in the canon. So there is a community of people that are looking and saying, this belongs in the canon and this does not belong in the canon. And the shape that it's in with Joshua, Judges, Samuel, the First and Second Kings, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and then the minor prophets, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Those writings don't really come together in any kind of canon until around the time 200 BCE. The third collection was the writings. Writings is what goes in that blank.
Rev?
Yes, you got your question?
I remember what I was going to ask earlier.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask, is Jehovah another word for God?
Okay, so that's an excellent question. I'm going to pause right there because this point I really want to drive home. So, yes, for a specific community. So one of the things that happens in the English is that everything that we read just kind of gets harmonized. But the God of Genesis 1 is you'll see it written as Elohim if you went back to the ancient Hebrew. The God of Genesis 2, you would see it written as Jehovah, the mighty breasted one, the almighty God, Jehovah. Those are two different concepts of God. They're as different in concept as, say, the way we think about God today and Allah. Yes, we say there's only one God and God by different names, but I want you to get that there were different communities that had different relationships. And so Jehovah behaved differently than Elohim, creator God. So creator God created by divine fiat or spoken word. So let there be light, and there was light. Let there be, the sun, the moon, and the stars, and there was. And then he said that it was good. Like, this God creates by the spoken word. Jehovah is a little bit more anthropomorphic. He walks in the garden. He don't know where Adam is. People get around that in terms of their reasoning by saying, oh, well, he was giving Adam a chance to lie, or a chance to come clean. The point is that different communities had different understandings of God. And so what you'll start to see through the text is that this dance between Jehovah, Elohim, the priestly understanding of God, the Deuteronomic understanding of God, like all these different understandings are there. And then even in different communities, people's understandings of God were different, meaning different understandings of how Jehovah revealed himself. So we did a lesson, a series a few years ago in the Hangout where we went through the different names for Jehovah, and what you see is this movement of the understanding of Jehovah. So if you move in an order, like the order that they appear in the Bible, assuming that that order is reasonably chronological, that you see this understanding of from like Jehovah Jireh to Jehovah Shammah to Jehovah Shalom. And so there's this continual evolution of the understanding of God.
And that also applies to Yahweh.
So Yahweh and Jehovah. Now, okay, here's where you hit my limitations, because I have not done that PhD, and I do not speak Hebrew or the ancient Hebrew or read it. That they are synonymous, and that there is no J in the Hebrew language, and that Jehovah is actually a mistranslation, and the correct translation is Yahweh. But I'll research that just a little bit more, Olga. But yeah, but in general, you can consider them synonymous. The Hebrew language doesn't have vowels in the same way that we do. So I would, Dr. Will Coleman would say, Yate Vahed. I may be even mispronouncing that. So I'll get a little bit more research on that. But in general, you can consider them synonymous. And the difference just being a matter of translation and how it was translated when it came over into the Greek. Okay, got it? All right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool. So where I want to go now, I want to go to the a whiteboard. I want you guys to bring out the 137th Psalm. So I want to talk. Well, this is from Reverend Marion, where she talks about how to read and study the text. And what she's giving here is a process for taking your 21st century mind and trying to put it into a pre-first century mind. So not even first century, like, hundreds and hundreds, millennia ago. So we're talking about thousands of years ago. And I use the distance between 2019 and 1819 because we know what our world looks like today. And through the history books, we have an idea of what the world was like in 1819. We know that we didn't have cars in 1819. Like, the world was vastly different. We certainly didn't have the types of buildings that we have right now. When people wanted to travel, they traveled by foot, they traveled by carriage, they traveled by horseback. If they needed to go to a different country, because there was international travel, but it was very expensive, they traveled by boat or by ship to another country. The understanding of the world was changing. We're getting to the place where people no longer think of the earth as the center of the universe. And so that's changing, but there's still some flat earth people out there in 1819. In 2019, our world has moved forward in a vastly different direction. And we have a world that, except for the fact that people still deal with the same old games people play, it's a very different world. Like, if someone will plop down from 1819 into 2019, we would be almost unrelatable to them, except that we look like human beings together. And so when we talk about the fact that we've got the Torah coming together in around 400 BCE, and then 200 years later, we've got the prophets, and then even another 300 years later, because remember, from 200 to 0 is 200 years, and then from 0 to 100, which is when the writings come together, that's another 100 years. So you have a 300-year span between when the writings of the prophets come together and then the writings which we would call Psalms, Song of Solomon, Proverbs, Job, Lamentations, Ruth. Those writings don't come together until after the life of Jesus. So just get that. So it is very possible that what we're studying as a, what, we consider like a final text, or we treat it like a final text, may not have even been the form that Jesus studied when he was studying the law, studying the Mosaic law, or studying the Hebrew scriptures. That the writings, the Psalms, the Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, those don't come together until after his lifetime. And so now you've got to call into question the way that we look at the Hebrew scriptures, because many Christians look at the Hebrew scriptures as if they foretell the coming of Jesus. But some of those things are not written until after, or don't come together until after the life of Jesus has ended on earth, like 70 years after. If he is crucified in the year 33, and it doesn't come together until the year 100, that's 67 years. Now, I want you to think about, okay, 2019. I don't know if anybody could do any quick math. Get my calculator. So clear 2019 minus 67. So the year 1952. Have you guys, some of us are old enough, not me, some of us are old enough to know what the year 1952 looked like, right? So what I'm trying to get you to see is that we've been given a way to look at this text that really that has an entirely theological bent on the text. But when you actually begin to get into it, what you see is that, wait a minute, some of this don't make sense. Listen, Psalms, Proverbs, Job, Song of Songs, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, Esther, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, Chronicles, those things don't come together in some kind of final form, or what we think of as a final form, until after the life of Jesus. That doesn't mean that they were written during that time, but it does mean that they were coming together. Okay. Oh, thank you. So just as a reminder, BCE stands for before Common Era, and CE stands for Common Era. And the reason being is that BCE so BC has means before Christ, and AD means Anno Domini, meaning in the year of our Lord. And the challenge with that is that it does not consider the fact that everybody is not Christian. And so as we become more embracing of other faiths and respectful of other traditions, we use a different language that does not assume that everyone is Christian. So BCE means before Common Era, and CE means Common Era. Now, who decided Common Era? I don't know that part. I don't know. Nobody told me. All right, 137 Psalms. So the first contact when you are looking at the scripture is that you want to just simply read the text. You want to read the text. You want to note your spontaneous reactions. You want to know what strikes you, what you like, what amazes you, and what raises questions for you. So you want to note, you want to read the text, you want to note your spontaneous reactions, what stands out, what caught your attention. So I want to do that right now with the 137th Psalm. How did my thing leave? Okay. I got this set up before class started. All right, Bill. We'll do this. All right, so let's put this on 18. All right, so we're going to do this together. And I want you guys to mute yourself, or you can type in the chat. So this is the 137th Psalm. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat, yea, we wept, when we remembered Zion. We hung our harps upon the willows in the midst of it. For there those who carried us away captive asked of us a song, and those who plundered us requested mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its skill. If I do not remember you, let my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. If I do not exalt Jerusalem above my chief joy, remember, O Lord, against the sons of Edom, the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it to its very foundation. O daughter of Babylon, who are to be destroyed, happy the one who repays you as you have served us. Happy the one who takes and dashes your little ones against the rock. So my question for you, and please unmute yourself, my question for you is, what stands out, right? We're in letter A. What's your spontaneous reaction?
I would say the sadness.
The sadness, okay. Very good, yes. I'm gonna write some stuff down as we're going.
And I guess the commitment too.
Sadness, okay, commitment. I heard somebody else's voice. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the punishment.
The punishment, okay. I heard another voice. Go ahead. Somebody said something else.
Anger.
Anger, yes. I picked that sense of revenge. That sense of revenge is like the day is coming when somebody's gonna knock your little kids up upside the head. Anybody else? Anything else that stands out? Any questions that come up for you? Any questions that come up? Any questions that come up?
Who's speaking?
Okay, that's a great question. Who's speaking? Yes. Anybody else?
Reverend Sherri,
Yes.
you said Zion was the same as Jerusalem?
Yes.
Oh.
And I'll research that for you guys, because Zion, there's a whole thing behind that, and I just don't know it by heart to tell it to you. I can look it up, but I want to keep going in this direction. But I'll look that up so I can explain the name for Zion, because when people talk about that Zionist movement, it is the Zionist movement that's like to reclaim that area of Jerusalem where the temple was, basically. It's not there anymore. It's actually a Muslim temple today. Any other questions that come up for you guys?
Yes, who's asking them to sing?
Okay. Who's requesting song? Got it. Okay. Any other questions? These are good. There are no right or wrong answers. So I want whatever comes up, because what you're listening for is what emerges for me when I read this.
It reminds me of the slaves.
I agree with the slave mentality, and I guess learning more about new thought. My question is, I got a real problem with that. I'm sorry, but I've got a real problem with that, because like you say, with the slaves, that reminds me back in slavery time, what we were taught. Is what they were going through.
So it brings up anger, brings up a sense of anger. About America, about American slavery. Yes. Every thought is valid. So you want to bring everything up to the forefront, because again, what you're asking for, thank you, Sherri said, I always ask, who's the audience? That's a good question. Who's the audience? Okay. I think one of the questions, so we said, what is Zion? That was a question that came up. What is Zion? Okay. I want to know where did this sense that Babylon would be destroyed? Like, what is that about, or where did that come from? Okay. Anything else? Just bring it up. So just know that that's there. So that's what you're looking for. Is there anything that amazes you about the text? Is there anything that what did you like about the text? Was there anything that you liked about it? Alita, tell me more what you mean. You said Zion obstructed sunshine. Tell me what that means. Was there anything that you guys liked about the text, or anything that amazed you about the text?
I think I like the strength that's coming from the writer.
Okay.
Still, even though he's sad, you can sense that there is this strength, this almost a defiancy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Got it. Defiance. Yes. Yes, yes. Oh, got it. Okay, she said that the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary defines Zion as unobstructed sunshine. Unobstructed, and that is the literal meaning of Zion. Well, wait, I gotta ask you: is that the literal meaning? Is that from the literal meaning? Unobstructed sunshine. If you think about unobstructed sunshine, because you guys may not have that. We have that here in California, where where it's just sunny all the time. It's just sunny all the time. Like there's no clouds in the sky. So the sunshine is absolutely unobstructed. And you guys may have days like that. It's actually the character of our experience out here. We have more days than we don't during the year where the sunshine it's just unobstructed light. Even
That
in
makes
the
me
wintertime.
jealous. In
Girl,
Cleveland.
You gotta keep on coming west. Keep on coming west. All right, I want to keep going because I want to be mindful of time. But what you would be looking for in this process is that what you're seeking is what stands out to me, and there are no wrong answers. It's what amazed me, what questions came up for me, what stood out to me, what surprised me. Right? All you're doing is feeling how the text makes you feel. That's it. You're just feeling how it makes you feel. I love what VJ said when she said they brought that sense of anger, like just, right, because you're relating to the text, and that's what you're looking for, is that how does this text touch me? All right. So then the next part, once you read the text, then the next thing is that you have to study the text. So you want to go back to the text without any explanatory notes from your Bible or any other help. So sometimes when we pick up the Bible, the first thing that we want to do, studying the text is what goes in that blank. Sometimes when we pick up the Bible, the first thing we want to do is we want to pick up a commentary because we want to tell me what this means. It's like, wait a minute, no. It's see what it means to you. See what it means to you. And so if it's not too long of a passage, and we won't do this here, but a really good technique for trying to get behind the mindset of the writer is to actually copy the text. Meaning, like, sit down and write the text word for word, and even using colored pencils. And there's some things that you want to mark, right? So you want to go back and you want to study the text, and the things that you want to mark, you want to look for words and expressions that keep recurring, that correspond, or that contrast. Words and expressions that keep recurring, correspond, or contrast. So if we went back to that text, what we would look for is, let me get this out of the way. So by the rivers of Babylon, so what we're looking for is words and expressions which keep recurring, correspond, or contrast. And so by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. We hung our harps upon the willows in the midst of it. For there those who carried us away captive asked of us a song, And those who plundered us requested mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its skill. If I do not remember you, let my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. If I do not exalt Jerusalem above my chief joy, remember, O Lord, against the sons of Edom the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it to its very foundation. O daughter of Babylon, who are to be destroyed, happy the one who repays you as you have served us. Happy the one who takes and dashes your little ones against the rock. So let's words and expressions that recur, correspond, or contrast. And I'll point out a couple here with Babylon. Let's see if I can change just this one color. Nope, I can't do that. All right. Unfortunately, I cannot. Okay. Okay, so I'll just draw like this. So we got Babylon here. We've got Zion shows up again. Zion shows up. That repeats. Sing and song shows up. Just looking for what repeats. Jerusalem repeats. Babylon repeats. There's some contrast here. It's relating happiness to harming someone, right? And we don't think of happiness in that way. That happy tends to be, it isn't. It's a happiness that's built on revenge. So this stands out. That's what you're looking for. Just whatever stands out with words that show up multiple times. Jerusalem again. Let me know if you guys see anything. I'm choosing some of these just to move it along, but I want whatever stands out to you as well. Lord, yep, okay. Right, that's what you're looking at. So these are the words, these are like your key words. These are your key words that come up. So you're looking, or it could be an expression that, that is there. This is something that stands out to me. Let my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. I don't know what that means. Maybe it means I lose my ability to speak. Let my right hand, it's like basically destroy my ability to speak and my ability to even earn a living if I forget who you are, God. If I forget Zion. That's major, huh? Like if I forget where I come from, take away even my ability to take care of myself. If I can't speak, I can't tell you what I need. Okay, now let's keep going. All right, so then the next one, you want to note people or things that are involved in the action. People or things, you want to note what they do, you want to note what they say, and you want to note what happens to them. People or things, what they do, what they say, and what happens to them. So that's something that's easy to go back to. So the people here, if you don't know the context, is that that there's some people and that they're captives, right? They sat down. I'm gonna look for a different. They sat down here. No, I don't want that. I need a different. That's what right? They sat down. We wept. Right? We hung our harps. We hung our harps upon the willows. So there are two groups in here. There's the group of captives, and then there's the ones who basically asked of them a song. So those who carried us away asked of us a song, right? That's a major something there that's happening. They said to them, sing us a song, right? They said to them, we want you guys to sing us a song. And then their response was reflective, where it's like, how can we sing? They ask for revenge, This is one of the things that happens. They ask for revenge. Again, this is what you're paying attention to. You're looking at, who's involved in the action, what did they do, what did they say, and what happens to them. We don't necessarily know what happens to them, other than that they were asked to sing a song for their oppressors. But we do know that they asked for revenge, right? We do know that they asked for revenge, which is and if you think about these are the people of the law, and they ask for revenge, and one of their tenets is love your neighbor as yourself. Is not, at least at this point, are not the Babylonians their neighbor? So this is that this song is basically like it's very defiant, because it goes against their creed of love your neighbor as yourself. Anything else that you guys see that I missed?
Yeah, this is kind of a side point, but when they were talking about they had to sing a song for their oppressors, I went back to, did you see the 5 heartbeats? And they were pulled over by the police.
Yeah.
And they told them, well, y'all singers, why don't you sing something?
Yeah.
And they were singing, I have nothing but love for you, baby. But it was just so grueling and heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what came up in my mind when I read that.
Yes. All right. You guys clear on this? Okay, so I want to jump now back to the PowerPoint. So here you want places and movement. Places and movement are certain places connected with a particular person or idea. Are certain places. Now, this doesn't mean that you're going to have an answer every time to every question. You could, but it doesn't mean that you will. Our places and movement are certain places connected with a particular person or idea. And so if we go back to the text, we do have somewhat that story where we have by the rivers, right? That this is a place that's happening. Right, the river. So I'm going to just put a check mark here. Use a different color. This action is happening down by the river, where the person is feeling all of this sadness and reflecting on the life that they have, because we really haven't had maybe in our community, meaning the Black community, we can relate to this, meaning the idea of this occupied territory. But from an American standpoint, as Americans, not Americans with like the different racial groups, but like America as an idea, we really haven't lived an experience where we are essentially occupied. That's just not our reality, even if you're in a minority community or in a African American community or some other community. That as a country, that has not been our experience. And so there is no sense in our mind of being walled in by another community and another community, another nation deciding the fate of a group of people. And again, I'm speaking of this, I know that we've got the realities of being, African American or Black or whatever you define yourself in America, but I'm saying as a country, this is not a reality that we know, because even someone living a Black experience in America can save up some money and leave this country. And I want you to get that this is an occupied nation now. They no longer live in their homeland. So if you can imagine another country coming in and taking over the US, and then everybody doesn't leave. They take off the people who are actually the doers. They leave the people who in this season in their lifetime couldn't put two nickels together. They leave them back in the country. They destroy the temple, right? So the temple was where you went to meet God, but it was also the center of commerce. So they have destroyed the center of commerce. So it would be the equivalent of someone coming in and destroying the centers of commerce in the U.S. if they were, say, in one place. We have a few different centers of commerce. But the main center of commerce, right, in the U.S., they have taken all of the doers, all of the people that are in this lifetime doers. They have taken them out of the country. They have left the people who were comfortable being followers in the country. And so essentially, who's left does not have the skill to rebuild the country. And they've taken all of those people who were the doers and they put them in service to another government. They have devastated the nation. And so I want you to get like this sense of like how they are living. This is historically what is happening in this community. This is a major, major deal, because the center of commerce has been eradicated with the destruction of the temple. Okay, you also look for indications of time. So which we have somewhat, we have with where they say they carried us away. So you could assume this is in the daytime that they're singing the song. Maybe it's the evening and they're reflecting on having had to sing the song. We don't really know. We don't really have a sense of like when this is happening. But I think it's reasonable to assume that it happened, and maybe the group after it all happened that did the singing gathered by the rivers of Babylon, and they were reflecting on the experience. So this sounds like an experience that happened, and now they're reflecting on it. Does that feel true for anybody else? Yes.
I like when you talked about the timing,
Mm-hmm.
because much of what you're saying now, as I see it, even with the population now,
Mm-hmm.
much of it has to do with timing. Much of
Mm-hmm.
what you say has to do with that we're not having to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
However, when we say we, who are we speaking of? Are we speaking of someone young like you, or some who have seen
Mm-hmm.
the fighting and the movement, and not thinking that could be any better, but one or two persons stood up and brought others up.
Yes, yes,
So
yes,
things have changed.
yes, yes, yes.
So, but I still see a similarity.
Yeah, I do too. When I read it, I thought, especially in light of everything that's happening now, I don't even know if 2 years ago when we were doing the Bible Hangout, if we had looked at this psalm, if we would see it in this light. That maybe for a few people, but in light of the conversation on reparations, in light of all of that energy comes up. So it's interesting to be looking at this psalm in this season. So again, places and movement. So that's what you're looking for, places and movement, and then indications of time. And again, we don't really have indications of time. Like we don't know, again, we don't know if it is, we don't know what time of day this happened. There's nothing that, we just know that they're by the river and they are lamenting having had to sing something that was personal to them, one of the Lord's songs for their captors. And while they are in this sad state, the captors are asking them to basically sing a joyful song for them. All right. So as a result of all this, you want to see what's happening in the text. Who is doing or looking for what? Who or what is helping in this search? Is it getting in the way? What's happening between the beginning and the end of the text? Can you see any change in whom or in what? How does it happen? What stages are involved? Who or what brings about this change? Again, these are just questions that you ask of the text. You're not looking for any right answers. You're just looking for whatever answers come up for you when you are questioning the text. And again, this is something that Reverend Mary really talks about over and over again. A lot of times we pick up a scripture and we just read it and really we don't question the text. You have to question the text. Where does this come from? What is this for? What is this about? And this is about how you get next to the scripture as much as possible, as opposed to just reading it on the surface level and taking the surface meaning that really probably is some interpretation that's been handed to you by the last pastor you had or somebody that said something that resonates with you. What you want is, what does this say to me? Then you want to put the text back into the context. So now after you've done all of this questioning, you want to recognize that this text is part of a larger whole. How does it fit into this whole? What is its place? What does it contribute? We've already talked about some of that with the get my words together, Sherri. Being in captivity, being a song of lament, expressing the anger and frustration at their captors. All of that energy, that's part of it, and so that's what you're putting it back into the context. The next thing you do is that you put it back into the setting of time, and so here it's only at this step that you actually bring in your Bible and other aids. And so there are questions that you begin to ask yourself when you want to situate it, like, when did this happen? Now, some of this we've already talked about, but so we know the answers to these questions, but when was this text written? So we know this text is written at least during the exile, at least during that time when the temple is destroyed. So you no longer have the center of commerce in Judah or Jerusalem, which is what was the capital of Judah. You no longer have the temple there. So that temple was a center of commerce for the Judean nation. And so that's destroyed. So this text is at least written after that. It appears to be written during the captivity. So what was the situation of the people or the author at that particular time? So this was a scribe who is basically putting pen to paper about this devastatingly hurtful experience. Like what you talked about, watching the Temptations have to sing for these cops and realizing how excruciating this is, because it is the sense that I control your life. You don't even have control over your life. So again, these are the questions that you're asking. The next question that you ask is, do some words or expressions have a meaning that's peculiar to that particular time? In this case, that may be the case. I didn't get into that, but we would look for like idioms. The closest thing that we have to that, the closest that we have is let my right hand forget its skill and let my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. But again, that would be something where now you would go back to your Bible aids and they would be able to tell you, oh, this is an idiom, or this is like a saying. You know, we have a saying, you know, today, like she's bad, right? Or he's bad. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad person. You know, as Run DMC said, bad, not bad meaning bad, but bad meaning good. Are there things like that are idioms that are specific to that time period? And those idioms help you locate the text. And again, those study aids, that's what would give you that. You don't have to like guess that kind of thing on your own. Those study aids help you to know what was actually an idiom. And what happens is that, so for example, I want to stop here for a second because this is part of what scholars do to help them date the text. So what's something that people, okay, you guys all get this because we're all older and none of us grew up sending acronyms to one another as messages. There are all these acronyms: LOL, OMG, ROFL, all kind of craziness, right? Stuff you don't even know. It's like, what does that mean? In fact, there's one that I keep seeing that says ICYMI. What in the world does that mean? Like, I have no idea. I can't make that acronym make sense or nothing. So, and somebody probably knows on here, so if you do, let me know so I can stop being in the dark. But an anthropologist who, say, captures like some emails and some data, it's the year 3000, and they're trying to figure out, about when was this written? Well, they will know when they start to see those all cap acronyms in there, and they start to see like emojis and things like that. They'll be able to say, oh, this is circa 2010 or later. You know, I don't even know about when they came out, you know, but let's say at least 2010 or later. So from a dating perspective, they could never think that it was 1970 because LOL wasn't a concept in 1970. People said, oh, I was laughing out loud, but nobody said LOL, right? It hadn't come into the lexicon, it hadn't come into the language yet as a way that people communicate with one another. So when you look back and you see these idioms in the Bible, what these idioms help you do is they actually help you locate the text in the time period that it was written. And so there's a term that's called an anachronism. And what an anachronism is that if somebody wrote a story and they put it in 1950, right? They said, oh, this is a story, it's written in they're writing a story in 2000 in the year 2121. Okay, let's say. And they set the story in 1952, right? So that's a good millennium. But they put into the mouth of one of the characters LOL. Well, someone reading that story would say, wait, that doesn't make any sense because people didn't start saying LOL until at least the year 2010 or later, right? So that's what I mean that they have a name for it. It's like a textual scholar that looks at those sayings, and they know that different sayings came into being around certain periods of time, and that helps them to date the text. So again, we're putting the text into the context of time.
Reverend Sherri?
Oh, in case you missed it. Oh.
Reverend Sherri?
Yes.
What is an example of a Bible aid that you would use for those idioms to figure out what those idioms are?
Okay, that is an excellent question. So this is one of my favorites. This is an exhaustive concordance. It's a big old concordance. Big old, that's one. Don't laugh at me, Alita, with your LOL. The New Strong's Expanded Exhaustive Concordance. So this is one. There is also, what is called a commentary. And there are, so the Anchor Bible is one of the respected commentaries. Respected meaning that you get as less theological slant on it. I think it's that Anchor is one, and I think Oxford is the other. This one you're going to get a lot of slant. Believers Bible, trust me, it's going to be it's about believers. So you're going to get again that theological bent. And what you're trying to get to is what's in the text. And so you want the commentary that has the least trying to make you think the way that the author thinks, and someone who's just saying this is what's going on in the text and this is what's going on in the community at that time. And so the Anchor Bible is one of the ones that's respected, but a commentary, and commentaries come in volume. So I have one over there. I don't think my other commentaries are downstairs or they're at church. Trying to find one that I could show you. Well, anyway, so the commentaries so every book has its own commentary. So Genesis has its own commentary, and then the books that are bigger like Isaiah, the Psalms, and a couple of others, they have multiple commentaries. So you'll see the Psalms divided into 3 commentaries. It'll go Psalm 1 through 50, Psalm 50 through 100, and Psalm 100 through 150. With Isaiah, I believe there are 2 commentaries for Isaiah. So because there are 3 different writers of Isaiah. So there's Isaiah, which is the actual prophet that lived, and then there's Isaiah, which is someone writing in the name of Isaiah. They call him TORAH Isaiah. He's writing like several hundred years after the first Isaiah. And then you have Trito Isaiah. Trito Isaiah is the 3rd Isaiah, and it's somebody writing even later than the 2nd Isaiah, but writing under the name of Isaiah. When we read it, we are taught that it's all one writer, and that the Isaiah writing in Isaiah 1 is the same Isaiah writing in Isaiah, 57, and it's not. But the commentary is what helps you to know that, and it's written in plain English, and it says this was the writer, and these are and they can't identify the person like Sherri wrote that, but they can give you a prototype. This person lived in this area. They were influenced by these things. They thought these things. These were the things that were happening around them when they were writing. They can give you kind of a prototype of the type of person who wrote that particular book or wrote those particular passages. Okay. Constance, would Rocco Errico books help? Yes, Rocco Errico books would be awesome. Reverend Sherri mentioned blueletterbible.org is a great resource. Blueletterbible.org, great resource. In fact, I'll bring that up since you brought that up, Reverend Sherri. So Blue Letter Bible, hold on, first. So this is Blue Letter Bible. Olive Tree. Okay, thank you. Olive Tree. I don't know about Olive Tree. So Blue Letter Bible, if I go back to the beginning, so it looks like this. This is a wonderful site. We ran into this when we were in seminary. But you just go in and you type what you're looking at. You choose the version that you want. You can choose any one of these versions. They don't have the New Revised Standard Version, but they have the Revised Standard Version, which is the one right before the NRSV. And then you just do a lookup. And then what's great about this one is that it has the scripture here, right? So this is the Revised Standard Version. But what happens when you click tools, it brings up the Hebrew words. So the word Nahar translates to by the river of. And then the word Babel translates to of Babylon. So the word there is Sham. So the Hebrew reads Nahar, Babel, Sham, Yashab, Yashab, Akkad, Bakar, Sion. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. Yeah, Sion. I don't know if you get it. Yes, Sion. So Zion is pronounced Sion. So it gives you pronunciations of the words. This is the Strong's reference. So this is the Strong's reference right here. And then what you're able to do is actually go to, so these words here, this is what the Hebrew actually says. And then this is what the English has been translated says. And then if you click on the button, it'll take you to the actual entry for Strong. So this word, and they have a pronunciation key. I think I'm only hearing this in my ear, so I don't think you can hear it. But the word Nahar, which translates by the rivers, is a masculine noun. It gives you the etymology, like what does this word come from? And then it tells you that the King James Version translates this word all these different ways: river, flood, streams, I don't even know how to pronounce that, and riverside. What that means is that if you go back to the text, any one of these words, flood, streams, riverside, could replace rivers. So instead of saying by the rivers, you could say by the riverside. Someone was making a decision about which word they were going to use in the text. You could say by the flood. That would change the meaning entirely. What is that? But someone said no. When in this context, usually a group, we think it means rivers. Those by the rivers. Okay. You can go to commentary. So if you wanted to go to the Septuagint, remember the Septuagint. This is the translation. It's the first translation from the Hebrew into the Greek, and it was for the Jews living outside of Palestine. Palestine is the name that Persia gave to Israel after it was conquered, and that these are for the Greek-speaking Jews. So Alexander the Great Hellenized pretty much all of the known world at that point, and which meant that everybody spoke Greek, and he had a whole system by which he made everybody speak Greek. So these Jews that were living outside of Palestine didn't speak the ancient Hebrew, and also they couldn't read. It would be like, second generation, third generation immigrants in this country, or immigrant families coming from an immigrant family. They may have come from China, they may have come from Mexico, they may have come from wherever, but they no longer, the children or the grandchildren no longer speak the native tongue in a way where they can actually communicate, read and write in that language. So this Septuagint was translated out of the ancient Hebrew into what they call the Koine Greek. Koine is K-O-I-N-E. Translated into the Koine Greek so that these Greek-speaking Jews would be able to read their sacred text. So you could go, if you click this button, it'll take you there. If you go here to commentaries, these are, many of these are very conservative commentaries, which is fine. I'm just putting it out there. When I say conservative, I mean that generally you're going to get some type of theological spin on the text, as opposed to this is just what the text says. And, and not necessarily this is what the text means. And so these these are all the different commentaries that you can pull up. And so you can pull up you can't get the ones that we tend to use, which are Anchor Bible. I'm blanking on the other one. I can't even tell you why. I can't remember that right now. Okay, I have a comment. Okay, great. Begins with an M. Thanks, Sherri. Got anything else for me? Yes, it begins with an M. It's not Oxford. Oh, I can't remember. Okay. That's all I remember. Okay. I thought it was HarperCollins, but it's the HarperCollins Study Bible. Great Bible. Great, great, great study Bible. Either the Oxford Annotated or the HarperCollins. Both of those are really great study Bibles. Okay, again, we're talking about putting the text inside of the time period. What is the literary genre of this text? This is a song. We know that it's a lamentation, right? Or a liturgy. Are there similar texts to this period in the Bible or outside it? Does this Old Testament text take up other themes from the Bible? Does it add? Does it take up themes known in Egyptian or Mesopotamian literature? What are the differences and the similarities? These are the kinds of things that you're going to get out of the commentary. These are the things that are going to come to you out of the commentaries and out of the other Bible aids, going to the concordance, seeing what other words could have been used. Sometimes when you pick one of the other alternative words, remember, Nahar could have been rivers, could have been flood, could have been riverside, it could have been a few different words. And when you put that other word in place of rivers, it may unlock an entirely different meaning for you. Okay. All right. Oh, what's this text? What are you doing? Go to another page. Okay. The text was produced by a community. Who is talking to whom, and what question are they answering? Who is talking to whom, and what question are they answering? These are the ways that you put the text back into the context of history and back into the context of time. All right? And then now, you want to go back to the questions you noted down at the beginning. Can you answer them? So let's go back to some of the questions that we had, and let's see if we can answer them. So I'm going to ask you guys these questions. Who's speaking? Who's speaking?
I think the captive children of Israel.
Very good. Who's requesting the song?
The Babylonians.
The Babylonians, yes. Who's the audience? Who do you think this is for? Somebody obviously thought this was a song worth writing down.
God.
God, okay.
It's also a warning to the future generations.
Yes, yes, yes. Don't forget your God, yes. What is Zion? As far as we know right now, I am going to look up more of that, but what is Zion as far as we know? What does Zion represent?
Home.
Home, yes. Yes. Where did this sense that Babylon will be destroyed come from?
The fact that they're the chosen children and this has happened to them.
Absolutely. And so this is how you make the text come alive. This is how you make the text come alive for you. And you're not dependent on any minister. You're not dependent on any class. You're able to do this for yourself. And so now when you go and you read the text again, what does it say to you? How does it help you live? And so let's actually do that. What does it say to you, and how does it help you live? So if we could read through it, it says, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat, yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. We hung our harps upon the willows in the midst of it. But there, those who carried us away captive asked of us a song, and those who plundered us requested mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its skill. If I don't remember you, let my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. If I do not exalt Jerusalem above my chief joy. Remember, O Lord, against the sons of Edom, the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it to its very foundation. O daughter of Babylon, who are to be destroyed, happy the one who repays you as you have served us. Happy the one who takes and dashes your little ones against the rock. And so the question is, what does this text say to you? With everything that we've pulled out of it at this point, how is it asking you to live? How does it help you to live?
It's asking us if these people are going through what they're going through at this time. It's asking us to stand strong on our principles, irregardless to what might be happening in our life.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. What
No
else?
matter what, don't forget God.
Don't forget God. Yes, Clarice, yes. Anybody else?
Amen.
Amen. Anybody else? VJ, what about you? VJ?
No, it's past my bedtime out.
Okay. All right. I know, it's East Coast. I know, y'all. I know. Okay. All right. But does this help with grasping the text and a way to approach your Bible study?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Any remaining questions? We'll stop here tonight. There's a little bit more, but I feel like we've done a lot and really dug in. And so next week we'll finish the introduction and we'll start the Torah. I know, VJ. Thank you. She said, this is so good, but I can't hang in much longer. Yes, we'll pick up next week. Anything else? Anything else that stands out?
I see that God is going to be revenging us or the people for what has happened to them.
Yeah.
So kind of I got you covered. I got your back.
Yes. Wonderful. So what I encourage you to do is to take this into your own Bible study and really sit with the text. And you can see that if you just pick it up and you just read it and you don't go and kind of do this kind of work, it isn't that you don't get something that can help you, but what you're looking for is, what does this mean to me? And it's hard to get past what you've heard ministers say or what you've heard other teachers say if you don't take your own time with the text. So I'm encouraging you to apply Reverend Mary's formula for reading and for studying the text. To do the work, it's worth it. It's in my opinion, it's the most important work that you will do, because what you want is, what does this mean to me? There's something here for me, and I ought to have it. Thank you so much for tonight. Have a great night. I've got a couple books that have to be sent out if you still need a text. We have some at Up Church. I just need you guys to, reach out to me about it, or you can go ahead and reach out to Universal Truth Center in Miami. Their phone number is 305-624-4991, 305-624-4991. If you are interested in receiving credit, continuing education credit, if you have a teacher's license through Unity or through USBL, let me know. We're doing the class activity. So the class activity that needs to be turned in is class activity number 1 for those of you that are doing this continuing education credit. And you can find at the back of the book. It starts on page 109. If you're doing this for CEUs, please turn in class activity number 1. Easter is coming up. We have a grand Easter celebration prepared for you in Los Angeles. And so if you're in Southern California, it would be our honor to have you come and hang with us on Sunday at 1 o'clock at 600 West Queen Street. I also want to remind you that we are bringing our Lenten season to a close, and we still have a few more days. If you want to access the Lenten call, you can check out where can they go, Reverend Sherri? Where can they go for that? Is she there? She may have checked out. Okay. I'll put it in the Up Church Love group. I'll also post it on the Rev. Sherri James page where you can get information for the Lenten call. This is a powerful call that we do from 7 to 7:30 every morning. And we'll be doing, go to the website. She said, go to the website in the morning, and you'll be able to get the information there. The dial-in, it's a free call, but it's a powerful close and movement into Easter, and so you want to be a part of that. And this is a free offering for anybody who is interested. All right, have a beautiful, beautiful evening. Thank you guys so much for tonight, and I will see you guys next week. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.